I ended up with Eric's firm as I was recommended from a professor at the University of Utah who'd worked with Eric, and when I said I needed some help with my case, said this was the people to talk to, and so they were one of very few firms that I spoke with, and by far the best.
I have a friend whose dad's an attorney, and he said Eric Nielsen and Associates were the people to go to if you've had any sort of malpractice case.
So what I was looking for in an attorney was someone who got the issue. Like one of the things that I found very quickly was my case didn't check a lot of the boxes for a standard case. At least that was how it felt talking with a couple of other firms, that it wasn't a very common term or diagnosis. It wasn't something that people can just get at a glance. And I felt that Eric and Todd really took the time to understand what the actual medical issue was, and that was reassuring. And the other side was I felt incredibly confident in their legal acumen, their ability to navigate the case successfully, so that I didn't have to worry about, like, are they representing my interests well? Are they competent in that portion, in that part of the process? I never had a moment's hesitation about that.
The person who greeted me, to the paralegals, to the attorneys that I worked with, everyone at the firm were incredibly friendly and polite, and just wonderful to work with.
Dealing with the staff at the office was great. The communication was always very clear, and I always felt like the staff were really good at keeping me aware of what was coming next and what I could expect, what was expected of me. And then the effort to understand the medical side was really, really important to me, as that's what impacts my life. That's what really drove the need for the case. And I felt from day one that the intentional effort was being put in to get that, to understand more than just, it's this issue and here's what I need to know. It was getting into, how does this impact your life? What is the impact to everything I do from this beyond what's on paper from the diagnosis?
Considering how complicated malpractice cases can be, it was really important to us that we found attorneys that really were up to snuff and understood what was going on. I feel that this firm really, really made themselves knowledgeable on every medical aspect of the case.
When we were talking about the medical aspect of the case, I felt that everyone I worked with, whether it was Eric or Todd or the paralegals, really got as much as they could without being in my shoes. They really worked hard to understand the experience I was going through and understanding the struggles, the way it impacted my professional life, my personal life, from more than like an on-paper perspective. They really worked hard to know, okay, what is this actually doing in my life and how does that impact everything? My ability to work, to make relationships, to drive around town was all impacted. And I felt they got that in a way that was really both reassuring and I think helped drive the case forward.
I think that the entire firm did a fantastic job with empathy, with understanding how painful some of these things were. They almost became, they became part of our story and part of our healing.
The process was scary. It was a lot of unknowns. I'd never done a formal deposition. I'd never been through that process, and I felt the firm did a really good job helping me prepare and understand the ins and outs and what I needed to do it successfully. And the process is a lot, especially coming in as a non-legal person. There's a ton of intricacies that I didn't understand at first. And I always felt that I could go to anyone that I was working with and say, what does this mean? What is this term? What is this process actually contributing to the case? and what's needed from me here and what's like just going on behind the scenes that I don't need to be involved in, so that I felt that I could keep a hand on the steering wheel throughout the case, that it wasn't just happening and I was kind of there. I felt the firm did a really good job keeping me aware of what was moving and where I needed to be involved and where I wasn't directly involved, depositions of other people or paperwork. They never hesitated to answer questions. So I always knew that people were doing the work even when it might be weeks or months between updates. Things were happening, things were moving forward, and I never felt like I needed to go digging for that information. It was always made available or communicated before I even asked.
Depositions are scary, and there's just an aspect of it that's confrontational. Plus, again, just the trauma that we had been through in the case made it hard to talk about. And I feel really strongly that the firm had our back.
The entire process is scary, and it's never happening at a good time, right? Like, you're not filing this type of suit when you're in great health and things at work are easy and things at home are smooth. And having Eric Nilsson and Associates there to support me through it, to be there to explain what was happening and understand the importance of the steps and what I had a hand in and what I didn't, made it navigable. And it made it so I could feel confident and engage where I needed to and step back where I needed to. And that was really, really valuable to me as a client and just personally. Like, it's a really hard process to go through. You end up talking about things on the record that are uncomfortable, talking about your health in ways that you may not want to with strangers. And I never felt anything but supported from the entire staff at Eric Nilsson.
The communication between us and the firm throughout our entire case was fantastic. We would have regular check-ins. Whenever we had questions, we could call. It was almost an open door policy where they would spend as much time as we needed to help us understand what was going on. We were never in the dark. If someone came up to me and asked me if they should hire Eric Nilsson and Associates without question or hesitation, I would say yes. They are experienced, they are kind, they are helpful, and they won money for us that helped us move on with our life.
I'd recommend Nilsson Associates in a heartbeat. The professionalism from the entire staff was top notch. The knowledge, the ability to stay in touch with me. I traveled a lot for work throughout the case. So often I was a 10-hour time difference from the staff, and I still never had trouble communicating, whether it was by email or phone. I felt like I could always reach someone, get a response promptly, and I just can't recommend them highly enough.